Совсем скоро, 25 октября, выйдет Call of Duty Black Ops 6. На волне грядущего хайпа мы решили обратить внимание на самую первую игру в этой серии, которую многие игроки считают одной из лучших. В этом ролике будут упомянуты True Crime, Прага и Александр Невский, ведь мы лично пообщались с композитором. Шон Мюррей родился в 1965 году в актерской семье Донна и Бетти Мюррей. В возрасте 10 лет он попал на съемки фильма «Остров Дамьена», над которым вместе с его отцом работал молодой композитор Брэд Фидель. Шона так впечатлила его работа, что он и сам решил научиться писать музыку.
My father is a terrific actor who just died recently at the age of 94, Don Murray, who starred with Marilyn Monroe in Bus Stop. So my father brought home the cassette tapes of his synthesizer work mocking up the score. And I just was blown away by the sound of the Moog synthesizer, you know? And so I learned all of the themes on the piano. And I said, wow, that's really cool. I want to write, said to myself, I want to write scores for movies someday on synthesizers. So that's how that started. But I never actually got to meet Brad Fiedel. But he was part of my father's life for 2 movies.
После окончания института Шон работал со многими режиссерами, в числе которых будущий режиссер «Мстителей» Джосс Уидон, Джесси Джонсон и, конечно же, Александр Невский. Первой же игрой в карьере композитора стала True Crime Streets of LA. Процесс записи саундтрека был похож на работу в кино. Нужно было создавать звуковое сопровождение для внутриигровых сцен, которые мало чем отличались от реальных фильмов. Однако, в отличие от кино, Шон получал материал по мере его готовности, из-за чего процесс записи затянулся с привычных 6 недель до нескольких месяцев.
Well, this was funny. My brother-in-law was working on a kung fu game. And so Chris Ocasek, who is the son of Rick Ocasek, the singer of The Cars, he was an art director on this kung fu video game. And I thought it was going to be like some kind of little handheld Game Boy, some little tiny thing. So he invited me to come down to Activision one day to look at what they were doing. And of course, I looked at that and I was blown away. I mean, it looked like a movie. The head of the company, Peter, was a fan of my work from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and some of the other things I had done. They asked if I would do a scene for them, a cinematic scene. So I ended up doing 1 or 2 scenes, and I gave that to the guys. So they had some other people that they were looking at, and they did some scenes as well. But when they got the music in, they were very democratic. They said, let's all vote on who we like the best. And I was lucky. The whole crew, everyone working on the game, got to vote, and they voted for me to do the score. So that's how I got into the video game world.
Работа над True Crime Нью-Йорк-Сити была заметно сложнее. В новой игре мелодия звучала не только в кат-сценах, но и во время игрового процесса. Музыка должна была подходить ситуациям, в которой оказывался игрок, от адреналиновой погони до спокойной прогулки по улице. Переход между композициями происходит бесшовно, одна мелодия начинается там, где заканчивается другая. Для этого Шону пришлось писать музыку фрагментами, глядя на записи раннего игрового процесса. Интересный факт. В одной сцене True Crime Нью-Йорк-Сити происходит перестрелка в театре, для которой Шон написал оперную композицию. Его отец, Дон Мюррей, свободно говорил на итальянском, и именно он помогал написать слова для этой оперы. Получилась история о мужчине, который отправляется в путешествие в поисках лучшей жизни.
Please, do you mind? ¡Chingada madre! ¡La policía otra vez! ¡Mátalo!
did a crazy opera piece for that. And it was so much fun. I can't remember what I based it on, maybe Barbara of Seville. Yeah, I can't remember what inspired that, but it was really fun. So it was like a hip hop opera. I ended up starting it very kind of classical, like a classical opera, and then I brought in the hip hop drums and made it kind of crazy. It was fun. And that was the first time I worked with this wonderful singer, Jane Runnels.
I met Sean through a neighbor of his in 2004 when I was in an acting class. And I graduated from college as a musician, and I met a girl named Ellie. And she was Sean's neighbor, and she asked about my work as a musician, and I shared with her that I was a classical musician and sung a lot of classical music in Italian, French, and German. And she said, "Oh, my neighbor's a composer, and he's looking for an opera singer for this video game." And I said, "Oh, great." She said, "Well, do you have any music that I can play for him?" And I said, "Sure." You know, I had a compact disc at the time, CD. And so I sent him, I think he listened to a French aria that I had sung, and he gave me a call and said, I love your voice, and can you come have an interview about this video game?
Над играми серии True Crime Шон Мюррей работал с саунд-дизайнером Брайаном Тьюи, который привел его в Call of Duty World at War. Действие этой игры разворачивается во время Второй мировой войны. По ходу сюжета игрок берет на себя роль как американского пехотинца в Тихом океане, так и рядового Красной армии на Восточном фронте.
I had Jane Runnels singing in German, so Brav Soldat was the name of the piece, and she was singing, like, taunting the Russian soldiers. So she's singing, "Brav Soldat, brave soldier, come with me, die with me, brave soldier." So my father wrote that in German.
I love singing in German, and I was excited to hear about it. So, you know, Sean brought me in, and he wrote this beautiful music, and we improvised certain sections as we do. And, well, this is a little embarrassing. I sing in a lot of languages, but I don't speak any conversationally. I mean, I studied Spanish in school, but I always learned other languages in the context of song or poetry. So if I needed to sing in French, for instance, I always needed help with my diction, but I really wanted to do it well. And in fact, when Sean and I were working on Call of Duty 5, we had a couple questions about German. And this was before, I mean, this was 20 years ago. Now you can get your phone out and say, how do you say this? All of that technology was just beginning. So we actually called his dad, and his dad, may he rest in peace, just passed away, Don Murray, very, very famous actor. So we called Don, and we were asking him to clarify some of the German that Sean had written to make sure, you know, everything was pronounced correctly and written grammatically correct, etc.
Работу над Call of Duty World at War композитор начал с написания американских оркестровых тем. Он считал, что игра уже сама по себе передает атмосферу Второй мировой войны и не хотел выполнять ту же задачу в музыкальном сопровождении. Поэтому помимо классических инструментов в саундтреке звучат тяжелые гитары и электроника. В будущем такой подход получил развитие в Call of Duty Black Ops.
And I wanted to do something more modern and not be, you know, compelled to write in that kind of strict style. So I used a lot of electronica and a lot of voices, treated instruments. The EBow I use quite a bit on the guitar, which vibrates the strings on the guitar and gives you almost a violin sort of sound. And I experimented a lot with sounds, and then of course I used a lot of the shakuhachis and then Eastern European instruments, balalaika, and I used the celeste very much, and some interesting Eastern European flutes as well.
По мнению композитора, Америка никогда не сталкивалась с такой жестокой войной в джунглях, как в Тихоокеанском театре военных действий. Шон стремился показать жестокость японских солдат глазами американца, погружая игрока в атмосферу далекого и враждебного мира. В компании за советского солдата он пытался отразить напряженность и тревожность. Хотел, чтобы игрок почувствовал холод разрушенного Берлина.
I was a big fan of the movie Enemy at the Gates. That was a terrific film, and I think World at War really drew upon that movie to get the proper atmosphere for the attack on Berlin.
Может, «Враг у ворот» Джудом Лоу не претендует на историческую достоверность, однако картина действительно вдохновила разработчиков оригинальной Call of Duty. В игру перенесена сцена, в которой игроку перед боем выдаются патроны, а его товарищу винтовка.
Солдат с винтовкой стреляет. Солдат без винтовки следует за ним.
Тем не менее, это не единственная отсылка к этому фильму. В World at War есть похожая сцена у фонтана, когда герои притворяются мертвыми, чтобы сбежать от немецких солдат. Хотя персонажи игры, как и их истории, полностью вымышлены, в игре показано достаточно много реальных событий. Так игроку предлагается водрузить флаг над Рейхстагом, во время которого звучит советский гимн.
I had written that piece, obviously, in Los Angeles, and I needed to come up with some lyrics to sing to it. I had Emily write the lyrics for that one. And basically, I didn't know shit. We didn't know any Russian. So we just used Latin words. And I just had Emily come up with a whole string of Latin words. I don't even know what the fuck we were saying. So the whole thing, I have no idea what the Latin words meant. But because we had the Czech singers, they had a little bit of an accent that they could sell as maybe being Russian.
На этот раз разработчики не ограничились записями игрового процесса. Композитору предоставили возможность сыграть в предварительные версии уровней в режиме бога. Такой подход позволяет глубже изучать уровень, не отвлекаясь на противников, количество патронов и другие игровые условности. Музыку записали в Праге, где сама студия, по мнению композитора, настраивала музыкантов на нужный лад.
What I liked about Prague, and I've probably said that I've said this in other interviews, but what I really liked about Prague is that the Nazis had occupied it, and where I recorded at the Smeki Sound Studios was an old dance hall. And during World War II, you would have been very common to have Nazis using that as an entertainment and dance hall. And it was also a building that Einstein had spent a lot of time at. I believe he did lectures there at that hall. So as I was walking up the stairs, these big stone stairs up to the dance hall stage, you could just imagine the sound of those Nazi boots going up and down, their big goose stepping boots going up and down the stairs. So, and you saw some of the damage to the city from World War II, some of the buildings that were still bombed and showed scars of the conflict. So that was very interesting. And I have to say the string players in the Czech Republic had a real pathos, had a real interesting feel that I really liked. And it led itself very well to, the European music, European theater for World at War. They had a certain emotion that they brought to it. And I do remember some of the horn players for the Americana stuff or like the Japanese campaigns, the Pacific campaigns. Some of the brass players had a little bit of a hard time playing some of my big, bold, high notes on the trumpets. They got a little red-faced and a little pissed off at me for writing some parts that made it a little challenging for them.
Oh, good question. So this is interesting. I did not go to Prague for my part of the recording, and I knew that Sean was there, and I knew that it was significant where they were recording. And when I did my part, because this was about 20 years ago, I'm trying to remember, I think Sean went to Prague first, and then I recorded all my bits after in his studio in Los Angeles. This is a very good question because there is a difference, and maybe it's because I've been doing this almost 25 years. There is a difference when you have live musicians recording in a special studio or concert hall or anything like that. There's a difference in the feeling. There's a difference auditorily, I think, than what you have today, which is much more, can be with all the computer-generated virtual instruments, lacking a certain spirit and soul quality. So I think it did affect my experience singing when I was in Sean's studio, hearing the musicians.
В Call of Duty Black Ops действия разворачиваются во времена Холодной войны. Игрок берет на себя роль агента ЦРУ Алекса Мейсона, который медленно сходит с ума после побега из лагеря в Иркуте. Там он встречает Виктора Резнова, солдата Красной Армии, знакомого игрокам по World at War. Саундтрек в этой части отличается более мрачным и суровым звучанием, которое подчеркивает напряжение той эпохи.
Well, there's a very interesting movie from 1972 or 1973 called The Parallax View, and that was directed by Alan Pakula. My mother happened to have a very small part in the film as well, so that's why I knew about the movie at such a young age. And Warren Beatty was the star of it. He's brainwashed into being like one of those sleeper assassins. And he didn't know that he was brainwashed to become an assassin. And we know of that from a program that the CIA had called MK Ultra. You may know about MK Ultra, where they brainwash, use mind control, drugs. So the movie Parallax View was very similar to what they were trying to do in Black Ops. So I used that as kind of the inspiration, and that was a Michael Small score. Had some influence on the kind of music I was writing for Black Ops.
Саундтрек для Black Ops был записан в студии Warner с участием 80 талантливых музыкантов. Несмотря на смену сеттинга, в саундтреке прижились идеи из World at War. Здесь снова сочетаются оркестровые партии и электрогитара. Это особенно ярко проявляется в треках Virus и Rooftops. Их быстрый темп побуждает игроков действовать решительнее. Что-то подобное было в треке Fight Parliament из World at War, где бит напоминал автоматную очередь. Вокальные партии снова исполнила Джейн Раннелс. Ее голос можно услышать в треке Beheaded.
That that's again my singer Jane Runnels, and we were just making up words, totally made up, and she was just trying to sound like Eastern European and maybe Bulgarian. I think we used some Bulgarian Bulgarka women's choir I listened to, and the Bulgarka women's choir was famous in the United States during the 80s and 90s. So she was just basically singing gibberish, but it sounded cool, right?
Okay, this is funny too because, forgive me, we recorded this 15 years ago. So forgive me if I would have to think back. You know, I think at the time, because, I mean, unless I know something that Sean doesn't, I don't think Sean speaks any Russian. There were times that he said, this is the feeling I'm going for. I'm going for, I don't know, fear, suspense. Let's improvise. And then he'd get a word or two and improvise. And it probably, I mean, I'm embarrassed because to you guys it must be, it might have sounded absolutely ridiculous, but at the time I think it was, if there was a frenzied moment, it was meant to be improvised and not necessarily literal. Does that make sense? If I recall at the time.
На данный момент последней игрой, над которой работал Шон Мюррей, является Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Композитор признается, что и сам с удовольствием иногда проводит время в World of Tanks или играет со своей дочерью в Forza Horizon.
I used to play that a few years ago with my daughter quite a bit. It's a driving game. Forza. Yeah. So I played that a lot a few years ago with my daughter, and I like just cruising around Italy and France, and then there was the one that was in Australia as well. So I played that one, and then I played World of Tanks quite a bit. I loved World of Tanks, but in the last few years I haven't been playing as much. But those two were the ones that I played the most, and I haven't played a Call of Duty since working on Black Ops. It's the Russian tank, the T-34. T-34. I used that a lot. Sometimes I'd use the silly little Japanese tanks just to get killed fast. But yeah, I like the T-34s. They were fun. And then I guess the Sherman tanks too. I like those. But yeah, that was a fun game. Now you reminded me how much I enjoyed playing that. I'm going to go and play it tonight.
Right.
You know, I do not. I think it's the big joke that I have 4 sons that love video games. I have never really been into video games, and my friend who has Call of Duty finally said, you know, Jane, you really ought to see what this is about. So I watched a friend play it, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. I am interested in history, so the fact that these were set in historical times was always very interesting to me. But no, I never have been a video game person, and so many people are. It's huge, you know, so yeah, that's true. I've watched people play Call of Duty, but I haven't played it myself.
В 2014 году Шон Мюррей написал музыку для фильма Александра Невского «Черная роза» и по сей день продолжает работать над его проектами. Среди них разборка в Маниле, максимальный удар, нападение на Рио Браво и другие. По словам Шона, они с Александром являются хорошими друзьями.
For Black Rose, they hired me because he was interested in a film that I did called Crusader back in 2007 and 2008. So he liked that score, and he was able to get in touch with me through his executive producer who had worked with me. And he was a big fan of Black Ops. And that's why he really wanted me to do that score. Really enjoyed that, loved collaborating with him on that project. That's where we struck up our good friendship.
Кроме того, Мюррей долгое время работает с режиссером Джесси Джонсоном. Среди последних его работ «Белый слон» с Брюсом Уиллисом и «Бутика. Королева воинов» с Ольгой Куриленко. Шон не только пишет музыку для этих фильмов, но и часто появляется в роли камео или работает каскадером на съемочной площадке в проектах обоих режиссеров.
So I do a lot of shootout scenes. I've done scenes where I've been in Boudica, Queen of War, which came out last year. I get shot with an arrow, and you can see me spitting up blood. In Accident Man, I get killed. I'm shooting an Uzi in that, and I get sliced with a katana. In One Ranger, I get shot by Thomas Jane. I have a nice big close-up with the blood pack spurting. I love doing this stuff. And the funny thing about Hell Hath No Fury is I played a Nazi who's dragged into the woods by Soviet soldiers. And they execute me in the woods.
This town, Los Angeles, it's a small town. So what I find is and again, I've been here working almost 25 years, because I started when I was young, about 18. When you meet one person and you work with them, a few times, people tend to want to work together for years. So through Sean, and I've worked with other composers as well, and producers and bands and things like that. It is really exciting that with each project, I'll get to meet most of the time the actor or the director at some point on the film. And so, yes, without Sean in the movie, I would not have otherwise met him or had that connection. You see that a lot here. You see it in the music business too. People know who they want to work with, and at a certain point, you don't audition. The only time that I auditioned for Sean was for TrueCon New York City, when he heard my CD and he wanted to hear my voice. Every time we collaborated after that, he would say, I want you to do this with me. And so, again, this is my long-winded answer, but yes, in this town, when you have a good working relationship with directors or composers, usually, in my experience, you continue your working relationship and you meet everybody on the future projects. So.
События Call of Duty Black Ops 6 развернутся в 90-х годах на фоне войны в Персидском заливе. Они станут прямым продолжением Black Ops Cold War. Уже подтверждено возвращение многих знакомых персонажей, включая Фрэнка Вудса и Рассела Адлера. Разработчики обещают небывалое разнообразие игрового процесса. Некоторые миссии можно будет пройти как привычным громким способом, так и более скрытно, притворяясь гражданским и подслушивая разговоры. Релиз Black Ops 6 на ПК и консолях последних поколений запланирован на 25 октября. Некоторые идеи Шона Мюррея прижились в саундтреках других частей серии, и мы надеемся, что Black Ops 6 не станет исключением.